Hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on episodes 10 through 12 of Kuroko's Basketball Season 3, and yeah, I couldn't wait. Technically, I'm coming back from my trip the Monday before this episode set should air on Patreon. But that only gives me like Monday and Tuesday to watch it and get it ready. And I'm like, what if I'm really tired coming back from my trip? Or what if something happens? What if I get sick over my trip? I'm like, knock on wood. Like, I don't want to just come back and be rushed. So I had time today and I was like, you know what? I kind of want to go ahead and watch it. Because I watched the other set yesterday of 7 through 9 and I was like, ooh, I'm feeling like binging. But honestly, I'm going to be gone for like 10 days. Or technically I'm recording this on a Sunday. I'm not even leaving until, later on this week, but I don't have time later on this week to watch this. So I'm really going to be gone for like 2 weeks. So by the time I get back, y'all will have caught up with me. So I'm not really going to be ahead just for like a little bit of time and then y'all will be caught up with me. But this game with Kaijo, I was just bound and determined that it wasn't going to be much of a game and we were just going to go straight to Akashi and Rakuten, but nope. We're just gonna go right into this amazingly crazy game with Kise pulling out all the stops with his perfect copy and then getting benched, having leg trouble or foot trouble, and then Wakamatsu or Kasamatsu. I always get their names confused, even though I know distinctly who they are. Kasamatsu being like, no, we're not just gonna let you have this game. We're going to give you a trial. And that they are, right? Trials and tribulations for our Seiren crew. I feel like with Aomine and Kise, and the teams that they are on, like with Shitoku, Midorama, I feel like Midorama's ability is really, really powerful, but it's probably like the easiest to overcome as long as you get near him and figure out his movements and everything. He's I think of all of them, the easiest of the Generation of Miracles, with maybe the exception of Murasaki Bara, to overcome in a match. But with both Aomine and Kise, it's not that they just have these ridiculous abilities, but their teams are also really talented as well. So it's like, even if you get Kise off the court or Aomine's not there to play the game, the team itself is still really, really good. And that's not to trash talk Shitoku or anything, but without Midorama, I don't know if it's the same deal. And I still think Takao and their team are really tough. They made it to the semifinals, so they gotta be. But I feel like Aomine with To'o and Kise with Kaijo, even if they're not present, their team steps up and still is a threat. And that's kind of what's happened here is Kasamatsu's like, no, we're not going to let you have this game because Kise's on the bench. We're going to keep you on your toes until you can come back in the last 2 minutes. And it's like, luckily Kagami seems like he's getting back in the swing of things and he's about to get in the zone. So good. I don't know how long this match will last. We've got like 5 minutes left, I think. It was either 5 minutes of the third quarter or fourth quarter. I'm not sure. I think the fourth quarter. And I'm not sure. I still think Seiren's going to win. They got to face Rakuten. That's going to happen. But I'm not sure if we're going to drag it out and it's going to be just this episode we focus on, the final of the game, or if we're going to have it's going to be like a 2-episode thing. I don't think we're going to go 3 more minutes. Nah. Or 3 more episodes. But we're on episodes 60, 61, and 62, or 10, 11, and 12 of season 3. And I'm really excited. So I've waited all day and I was like, you know what? I've got a nice warm cup of coffee here. I'm ready to go, as if I needed anything else to stimulate my adrenaline anymore. Because this series does it, right? So, with that being said, we're going to start episodes 10, 11, 12 of season 3 of Kuroko's Basketball and just see what shakes out. I'm sure Seiren's going to win, but it's going to be a nail biter. I'm just going to say, just call it right now. So, we're going to start that here in 3, 2, 1, and come on, narrator, give us that Teiko Middle School. Let's go. So there's 2 Akashis, huh? I felt like Monster. There's 2 Johans. I don't know. So I'm guessing that the 2 Akashis, one Akashi is the one that has both of his red eyes, and the other Akashi is the one that has the one red eye and the one orange eye. And that Akashi is the one that's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs crazy that we want to avoid. Right? I'm just going to assume that that's the case. So we're going to say maybe he has, I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know how I feel about the idea that we're going to give Akashi an out because he has a split personality. I'm not really a fan of that narrative trope. I never have been, because I'm like, no, you're one person. I don't know. I know that there are people that legit have a personality disorder, and I almost feel like, I don't know. Here's my thought about that, and all I will say, because obviously in the next set of episodes it's going to be a flashback, which I'm really excited about. I have loved so far all of the flashbacks of Teiko, because they've helped to really establish those Generation of Miracles players, and I've really liked those because they give us more layers each time we get a flashback of them. So I'm excited by the possibility that we might have like a set of flashback episodes. That might be great. But here's my thing, real quick. And I will probably briefly touch base on it when we get back to that whole thing about the two Akashis. But I'm not a fan of using a split personality or multiple personality disorder as a justification for a character acting villainous. I don't like that. I think it does a disservice to people who legit have those personality disorders and are like, wow, so thank you, creative narrative character. I guess all the villains have to have split personalities and that makes them antagonistic. I don't like that. I feel like it's a disservice to people who legit have that in their lives to deal with. And they're like, I don't want to be the villain of a story. You know, when you relate to characters, I'm not a big fan of that trope at all. And so if that's what we're going to say about Akashi, I'm like, So we'll see, though. That's all I'm going to say about it. I will hopefully be proven wrong. I'm really excited for the flashback, though, because I want to get to know Akashi's character and like him more. And so far in this series, there's just not been anything for me to like latch onto to be like, oh yes, like here he just sat there with, you know, like a king overlooking, like I was just waiting for him to do the gladiator like this, or like the thumbs down for like killing them. So I am excited by the prospect of seeing Akashi in a more favorable light. I am excited at the prospect of getting more depth with Akashi and finding out more about his character. But I'm going to be a little bit like, if they try to use a like split personality thing as a justification for him being an asshole. I'm going to be like, I don't know if that's a pass for me, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it next week, won't we? So we're not going to talk much more about Akashi in this episode, but this set, I joked at the beginning. I was like, oh man, so the game against Kaijo, it can't possibly last 3 more episodes. I was like, nah, it'll be 1 or 2 at the most. It was like 2.5. But you know what? I was legit. This series has a way, somehow, against all odds, this series has a way of just making you be on the edge of your toes the entire time. Like, I've been saying the last 6 episodes, I'm like, oh, well, Seiren's gonna beat Kaijo. We all know that. And yet at the very end, I was like, they might not. I just don't know. They somehow just do it at the very end. And Kuroko getting his first buzzer beater. I'm like, good for you, Kuroko. That's awesome. But man, Kise being the greatest player. Kise is wonderful. I really love him. I feel like Kise doesn't get enough attention in this. Aomine has such a large personality that Aomine really stands out. Like, he stands out. He gets good screen time. He's voiced by Junichi Suabe. What more do we want? Like, Aomine's right up there for me. He's risen a lot throughout the series. And Midorama has such like an iconic personality, and he's so like just bold and crass, and you're like, okay, Midorama and your Oha Ase items, sure. And then Murasaki Bara is probably down there for me just a wee bit. I like Murasaki Bara's personality a lot more after this game when he starts to get like all Valley Girl. He was quiet though. In this episode set, he didn't say much at all. He just sat there munching chips. He did not say much of anything. And then Akashi is at my bottom rank right now, but I'm hoping, you know, he might go from here, and here's all the other Generation of Miracles players, to like right up there with him. So we'll see. But I feel like Kise has always kind of got the short end of the stick in the series up until the in season 1. I felt like it did, because he was the first character that we met from the Generation of Miracles, and usually, you know, the formula is that you face your like easier opponents first, and they just get harder as you go, right? But you know, if you're going by Haikyuu logic, sometimes the earlier characters you play are the most iconic. And I liken Kise a lot to Oikawa, right? They're not the same characters. So they totally different backgrounds, not the same characters, anything like that. But Oikawa in IQ is one of the first like antagonistic characters that Shoujo faces and that Crossnote faces. And then he ends up being like one of the more iconic characters in the series. And I feel like in that regard, Kise kind of follows suit because he's kind of dramatic like Oikawa. He's one of the first characters that's antagonistic towards Seiren. And then he just becomes kind of iconic because he's a model. He's like a crybaby. He's an ugly crier. But he has such heart. And that's what I love about Kise. Like, when he gets serious in this game, it's kind of scary because you're used to him being so laissez-faire and just being like, oh, yeah, we're just going to play and do great, right? And here, he was stone cold serious. And it was like, oh, don't mess with Kise. And he was just being such a badass. And it was kind of scary. And I was like, oh, and then at the end, I'm glad that at the end, when he walked up to Kagami and Kuroko, I'm glad at the end he was able to shake their hands and be like, okay, hey, let's play again next year. I'm like, that's how you do it. That's how you do it. You have sportsmanship. You play your hardest. No regrets. # no regrets. And then at the very end, you're like, hey, we did all we could. It sucks that we lost, but let's play again next year. And I'm sure without Teppei or Hyuga, Kise's probably going to win. But, who knows? Maybe Seiren will get some really good first years come in. We'll see what the crop looks like, maybe. So, going back to episode 10, I don't have nearly as many notes as I did with the last episode set because it was just all action. Like, there was a lot of, I feel like episode 11 drug a little bit. I don't know if anybody else felt that. I felt like episode 11 was a little bit more drawn out than it could have been. The pacing could have been a little bit better in episode 11, but I feel like when they got to episode 12 and they had to have that little brief preview of Kuroko's past, and that we're setting things up for that, it's like, okay, all right, I hear you. So, Kaijo, I like that we start out episode 10 we book in this episode set with the idea of Kaijo being a threat. And that we start out with Riko saying, look, just because you beat him in a practice game does not mean that we can take it easy. And Hyuga's like, no. Practice games are practice games. Official games are official games. There's different vibes. The audience interaction was a big factor in this game, which you don't get in practice games. And just like the stakes of it. When you're in a practice game, yeah, things are a little bit more or less, they're less critical. It's just like, oh, wow, you beat me. Oh, no. Here, it was like the semifinals. The team that won got to play in the finals. But let's be real. Like, Seiren is going to struggle against Akashi's team. They're going to struggle. But do we really think that Kaijo was going to be any better? I mean, Kise has his perfect copy, but he had his foot injury too. So he would have exacerbated his foot injury after this game and played again on it. I think that the better team ended up winning. I think Seiren in the end, even though it was a nail biter, I do agree with Akashi when he says that, with as much as I love Kasamatsu, without Kise, I don't think Kaijo would have done nearly what they did. And I think they would have struggled. And I don't think they could have faced Rakuten. I don't. I think the better team won in the end. But man, they made it close, right? So Hyuga, he heard from the vending machines that Seiren was getting talked down because it was just a practice game. They didn't make inner high, so they're not as tough as Kaijo. And that's hard. That's hard, to face. And so Hyuga, has a chip on his shoulder because of that. Number 8 does the same thing. They call out Teppei too when he gets fouled during the game and says that Seiren doesn't care enough to win. They don't care as much as Kaijo does. And I was like, dude, you can't say that Seiren doesn't care. And Hyuga kind of gets to that point too. He's like, just because we haven't, lost to a team like Toho, just because we beat them doesn't mean that we don't care, right? He's like, we have our own chip on our shoulders. Don't compare losses and what loss feels more than the other, right? So, and then the number 8 says that Teppei doesn't have the drive because he wasn't part of like the practice game or whatever. He doesn't have like the revenge nature in him, and Teppei really doesn't. Teppei's not a guy that's out for revenge, right? But I love that Hyuga kind of becomes like a delinquent. He gets his delinquent energy back and he's like, come on, Baka, come on, Ironheart. And Teppei's like, don't call me that. I love that Teppei does not like stoic, noble nicknames. He's like, stop it. And then Hyuga's like, Ironheart. And then just gets him going. And their banter starts back up again. I love that Kagami is kind of like, is this okay? I love how much Kagami has grown too as a character over this series. Kagami is such a communicator, and when he sees Tepe and Hyuga arguing, he's like, is this okay? Is this good for the team? Should we worry about this? And Izuki's like, no. He's like, you weren't here last year. They've mellowed out in their old age because they've got you first years to worry about. But he's like, this happened all the time last year. I like that Izuki is not worried about it at all. And then Kagami's like, okay. And they end up, like, the banter gets, Tepe worked up and motivated, and Hyuga, they get focused again. It was really funny, and Riko's just back in the back going, yeah. This is it, huh? So Seiren's holding their own, and Kise wants in so badly. Man, the moment Kise was like, please let me in, and he looks over and the coach is just like, that coach was trying his best. That coach was like stealing his resolve, being like, Kise, I can't. Like, I was surprised that he let him in at 4 minutes, but and there is, we've talked a lot in Ace of the Diamond about injuries and whether or not players should play through them and should coaches have responsibility to keep them off of them and blah, blah, blah. I feel like Riko handles it the best in this series, where Riko's like, okay, we're going to tape it. We're going to do all the precautions we can. But if I see something, you're out the minute you're out and you're not coming back in. Like Riko has a big resolve about it. I feel like this coach, I don't know. You wonder about that. You're like, Kise's foot being injured. Yeah, it's taking him in to win the game. But I'm like, if it does permanent damage, then will he get to play that game against Kuroko next year? Or will he be in like a position like Tepe and not be able to play? I feel like the ultimate cruelty is going to be that eventually Kise is not going to be able to play unless he gets that foot fixed. So I don't know. But I guess, again, that's a discussion to see if it'll happen another day or not, right? But he's told to wait. And then Rakuten shows up. They apparently had a long after game meeting. They had a lot to reflect upon. I just imagine Akashi has like them doing yoga and they have like incense everywhere and they just have to stay in a yoga pose and meditate for 60 minutes on their decisions. I just figured that's what it is while he's doing like arts and crafts. I'm going to have a lot of fun teasing him until I find out his backstory. So next week. But yeah, they show up, and then Almine and Momoy show up from their date too. I knew it. Last set of episodes, I was like, Almine is going to go to that stupid game. He's not going to be able to sit down. He was looking at the clock being like, can we make it in time? Right? And I love that when Momoy like hits the back of his, like she bumps into the back, he's like, ow. I'm like, you're like 6'3" and like twice the size of Momoy. You weren't hurt, you big baby. I love them together. And so Seiren gets 15 points ahead of Kaijo. And the moment Riko was like, well, as long as we're 15 points ahead, it's checkmate, we can win. I was like, no, you can't say that in this series. You can't say that in a sports anime. You can't say that in real life. You never know what is going to happen. Like, anything can turn the game around. I'm like, don't you do it. Don't you do it, Seiren. But they do it. And everyone thinks that everybody thinks Kise's ability as a timer. Everybody knows. Akashi knows. Almine knows. Himuro somehow knows. I'm like, did all the Generation of Miracles just like sync up a telepathic wavelength? And we're like, oh yeah, Kise's perfect copy only has 5 minutes to work. And then Murasaki Bara told Himuro, how do they know these things? I was like, did you all just like type each other an email and explain your abilities? What? But like, it has a timer on it, and then Riko realizes that it might not. That maybe it doesn't have a timer. Maybe he can keep playing with it. Like, And so, I really, really like the Kise and Kasamatsu conversation that they have in the gym. Like, it seems like it's immediately after the loss against Toho's team, and Kise tries to blame himself for the loss, and Kasamatsu's like, no. He's like, an ace leads its team to victory. You're not responsible for the loss. The one who has to be responsible is the captain. It's me, right? I'm the one that has to worry about it. So that got me thinking. I was like, okay, so on Kaijo's team, Kasamatsu's the captain and Kisei's the ace. On Toho, Imayoshi's the captain, right? And Almine's the ace. On Seiren, it's Kagami, Kuroko are the aces. And then Hyuga's the captain. And then you have on Midorama's team, you have Midorama's the ace, but the one guy, Otsuba or whatever, number 4, he's the captain, right? And then in Murasaki Bara's team, it's Himuro and Murasaki Bara are the aces, but then they have a captain too that's somebody different, right? They're not the captains, it's someone else. But then on Rakuzen, Akashi is the captain as well as the ace. So he does share the responsibility for the loss and the win if you're going by Kasamatsu logic. So, okay. So that would explain, like, that's like double pressure on Akashi where he's like, I have the responsibility as the ace to lead my team to victory, but by Kasamatsu's logic, if we lose, it's also my responsibility. So, yeah, that kind of, the whole eye gouging out thing kind of makes a little bit more sense by that logic. But again, Kasamatsu wasn't going to gouge his eyes out just because he lost a game, right? So, but that added pressure makes a little bit more sense now. It adds another layer to Akashi's character. It's like, okay, that makes, if we're going by Kasamatsu logic, only if we're doing that. And so Kise goes in with 4 minutes left. That part where Kise's like, I love this team. I was like, oh, like Kise won my heart over in this episode set. Kise won me over. Like the whole, I love my team. Like Kise was the first person out of the Generation of Miracles to like lose to Kuroko and Kagami, declare his love for his team and teamwork, and just embrace the Nakama beam. Like that just warmed my heart when he said that as he tossed his jersey and like looked at everybody else and everybody was like, Kise loves us. It was really cute, right? Super cute. And so Kuroko and Kise going in at the same time, like being all serious, and Kise just walking past Kagami with just like the death glare. I loved the animation on Kagami's face throughout all of these episodes. There was like moments where he'd be like, and have this like really like engaged and like surprised expression. It was really good, right? And so the perfect copy of Aomine. I noted it in the reaction where Aomine, when he does the copy combination of Aomine's move and Akashi's move, it's the first time that either of them have seen Kise copy his move. Like Aomine has this look on his face like, wow, you really have grown a lot since your game against me, and your copy game is pretty awesome. So, like Aomine looks impressed. He's like, oh, But Akashi has like this pained look on his face, just like, it's a copy. I actually really like his expression. I like Akashi's expression there where he's like, I mean, it's fine, I guess. If you go back to that moment, his expression is very interesting. Very interesting. So he also was able to copy Kuroko's pass, which is, the animation on that moment was like a Dragon Ball Z, like Kaioken move. It was unearthly. I was like, it took off part of Kuroko's hair. I saw little light blue hairs flittering in the breeze. What? And so at the end of the third quarter, it's 66-77. So they're able to close the gap. And like, Seiren only scored, they went 77 and they only scored 4 points in the whole fourth quarter. That was it. 4 points. That's it. That's how crazy it was, right? Because we start episode 11. I do want to make note that Kagami makes note of how at the end of episode 10, a cornered Generation of Miracles player is very dangerous when they're cornered. Usually that means that they're going to try something crazy or, go in the zone or do something wild like that. And then Kuroko notes that Kise is most dangerous when he's concerned. Like when he's worried about his team or his team members, that's when he's the most dangerous. That's when he gets in his groove, right? So we have 3 minutes and 33 seconds left, and Kise is in it to win it. I love that when he's sitting on the bench and he's focused. Again, it reminded me a lot of Oikawa and Haikyuu, because Oikawa, when he's in the zone in the game, he like sits on the bench and like doesn't move. He just is hyper focused. And he's just like that. And Kasamatsu does the same thing, so it's really cute there. And the team is all about it. They're like, let him stay in the zone. We're all hyped up. It's great. And I love Kasamatsu's like soft face when he looks over. He's like, he's the most dependable he's ever been in his life today. I'm like, Kasamatsu won my heart too. Like those two, Kasamatsu and Kise, OTP, like no chance. I'm like, they're so good together. It's great. How dependable is he? And then Hyuga. So Hyuga's whole thing, we can't afford to make mistakes. I feel like that's going to come out in the next episode or the next game, because with Rakuzan, you really can't make any mistakes. But that's a lot of pressure because they're going to be on their game and we've got to be on our game. Seiren does. And so that's going to be... I can't imagine Seiren as like flitted by the seat of their pants for most of this series. And then they're going to face a team whose captain and ace is like a champion shogi player and excels in strategizing. So I'm like, this is going to be a really painful, hard game. And I'm like, oh, I'm not ready for it. I'm not ready for it at all. Nope. So they decide that they're like, we have to stop his copy. We've got to stop it here or we're not going to win. And so they try to triple team and beat him, but it doesn't work. They try to use the Eagle Spear. It doesn't work. And then the whole thing about the fans, that made my skin crawl a little bit because I was thinking of Haikyuu, I was thinking of other series, like I was thinking of Ace of the Diamond. Like the use of an audience and a crowd in a sports anime cannot be understated, because you can use them to do so much to the atmosphere. You can use it to hype up characters. You can use it to break them down. And here, the goal was to try to break down the spirit of Seiren by making them the villains, by having Kaijo be the underdog team that was coming up from behind. Everybody wants to root for an underdog, right? And so they were just like building Kaijo up, and like there was one animation where like the heels of some woman's shoes and the feet were like making like the Kaijo, and the animation of it was so like, it just made you unnerved, right? It was just and the bleachers, like Rico and them were all just looking up like, quit cheering for them. And then Kasamatsu and number 8 and Kasamatsu giving Kise the head pats. So cute. And the one guy like fist bumps. He's like, I'm gonna head pat, and we're fist bumping. And then Rico realizes that the pressure is getting to Seiren. It's overwhelming them, right? Which I can't even imagine what Rakuzan's gonna be like. Can't even imagine. Don't even want to think about it. I'm so glad that Seiren won, but seeing how close this game was, and then knowing they have to face Rakuzan, Akashi, and 3 uncrowned kings, I'm like, that's just not fair. It's not fair at all. I was like, oh my god, no. And the fact that Akashi and Kuroko were like strategizing at the same time, I was like, oh my god. We'll talk about that in a minute. But it nearly affects them, and Rico almost takes another timeout, which would have been bad because she would have used up, I think, all of her timeouts at that point when Kagami fouls. And everyone's questioning whether he did it on purpose. And I'm like, come on. And I'm glad that Kise's like, no, he didn't do it on purpose. He's just desperate. He's just like all of us. And I like that Kise kind of like, he's been super intense in the zone and his eyes glowing like a feral cat. But the moment he like kind of like softens a little bit, it's just like an instant like that. It just like all melts off of him. And he softens up, and Kagami says, I love that Kagami's like, y'all can think that we're the villains. Villains only exist and lose in fictional stories. He's like, this is our story. We decide how it goes. Like, it's the most storybook, cute, inspirational thing. And I love that Hugo's like, Kagami, that was really lame. And Kuroko, they give him so much hell. Like Hugo calls it lame. Kuroko calls it lame. Teppe's like, are you a screenwriter? And then Izuki is saying, this is our story. But he's like, this is our story. History, our story. I'm like, oh my god, he's trying to make a pun out of it. And Kagami's just like, what did I do to deserve this? I tried to be poetic. I tried to be inspirational. Bring the team back and y'all make fun of me. But it does manage to calm them down. It does manage to shift their focus. Like Kagami, communication skills 101. Like he manages without even realizing it to diffuse the tension. And Rico's like, okay, we don't need a timeout. Good. Glad we got that settled. Right? And then that leads Kuroko to get the idea that he can maybe, as Akashi says, induce what... I don't like the word induce because it sounds like inducing labor. I was like, Kuroko's not having a baby on the floor. I was like, oh my god. But the idea that he can kind of influence or interpret or figure out what move Kise is going to do based on patterns. It very much was what Kise was doing to Aomine during the Toho game. Kise was like, I need time to watch to watch Almine so I can copy him. And Kuroko's kind of doing something similar. It's very creepy that Kuroko and Akashi were figuring out the same like strategies at the same time. Again, someone had told me in the comments moons ago that originally Kuroko and Akashi were supposed to be brothers. You can definitely see that in this series. I can totally see where they were supposed to be brothers. And then the mangaka was like, that's a little too cliche. Let's not go that route. But you can see it. You can see like some of the narrative decisions. It's like if they were brothers, that would have been like a major trope. But since they're not, it's just kind of like, okay, Kuroko's thinking this and Akashi's on the same wavelength. So, and Akashi's a strategist, so he's trying to like a chess player to figure out what moves are left that you can do. And so Akashi is talking about inducing rather than predicting, and it's 78-77 with 30 seconds left at the end of episode 11, and they've got one chance to get it right. I love that this is like the longest 36 seconds in anime history, although I say that, and then you have like Dragon Ball Z, who had like 10 episodes for 5 minutes. But yeah, but it's all them. We don't even get the OP. This episode's too important for the OP. I'm glad we did that because it suggests that that's going to happen in the future, and I'm excited about it. I got my hopes up at first because I knew Kagami was sitting next to Kuroko, and when I saw that the tanned hand with the ice pack on Kuroko's neck, I thought it was Kagami, and my shipper heart was getting full. But no, it's just Kawahara, and that's it. But Kuroko's like, it's incomplete. It's not the best, so I need you guys to hold off Kise while I can watch him more. And Kise tries to figure out, I love that Kise is called the greatest player because he not only is super strong, very talented, but he also is a good sportsman. He's kind, he's funny. Like, Kise is a total package. He really is. And I'm glad that this series gives him some recognition, right? Like, Kise is like the best of all worlds. It's a lot of fun. And so then the lighting on this episode was really good. And especially on Kasamatsu at the beginning of this episode, like the lighting's great. And then we get like a close-up of Mabuchi, and he's just like, they don't need power now. Like, he just, with his like pursed lips looking like a BL star. It's great. But man, just the animation and everything. And then, yeah, Hyuga falling into the bench, like busting his lip in the bench. That was a crazy moment. But yeah, just all the moves, trying to get everything to work so that they can make that one shot. And Kise trying his best, and then they managed to do it. It's a comeback. And then I like the Kasamatsu instantly like gets everybody calm. He's like, look, we still got time. We still got time. It's 79-78. We can still do this. And I love that Kuroko and Kagami, they look at each other like, we know what we need to do. And like, they're like, we're going to try. I think what he was talking about was that even if we stop Kise and if they score, you get ready to run and we'll get you the ball at the end. I think that's what they were referring to in that moment. But you think it's going to be the block that they're trying to do on Kise, but instead it's something else, right? Oh my God. And then I love that whenever like Kuroko gets onto Kise to stop him, Kise's like, we've already done this before. And I love that we cut back to Almine looks unimpressed. Almine is like, what are we doing? And Murasaki Bara is so quiet during this set. He didn't say hardly anything at all. I'm like, that seems so uncharacteristic of him. It's very weird. And so Kise thinks they're going to do the same thing again, but that's not how it goes down exactly. And there's 14 seconds left. And Kise, he's like, Kuroko plays all out to win. He wouldn't just give up in the last and do a mediocre play. He's planning something. He's the first pathetic player that I ever learned to respect. And it sounds bad saying the first pathetic player I learned to respect. That makes it sound like it's an insult to Kuroko. But I think the translation is probably something more along the lines of he's the first average player or player who wasn't good at basketball that I came to respect. I'm curious about Kuroko's past with this one kid that will never forgive him again. I'm like, is there a reason Kuroko's super polite? Is there a reason that maybe he wasn't polite in the past and it caused like something bad to happen? I don't know. And Kise's like, I'm glad you called me your rival because that gives me incentive to beat you. But yeah, he goes up and then Kagami manages to, he falls down, but then he tries to get back up and then falls down again. And then they try to use Murasaki Bara's move. And like the Kaijo bench is going crazy. They're like losing their minds on the bench. And he goes up in that stupid, it almost looks like he's a burrito, like just spinning in the air with the ball. That's why I call it, it's like a burrito tornado. It's just ridiculous. And then Kuroko figures it out. Kise has two tendencies. He tends to copy Almine when he gets rushed. And then he only uses the plays that fit that player for the region of the court that they're in. So, like, once he goes on the inside, he's not going to do a Midorama. He's probably going to do Murasaki Bara. The irony of all ironies is that Kise can't do himself. That's kind of the weird thing, right? There's not a Kise copy that he can do because that's his whole thing, right? And so he will draw out the Almine copy. It'll probably be Akashi, but then it'll be Murasaki Bara, the Thor's hammer. And then Kise, meanwhile, is as he's doing the moves, he's trying to figure out, well, what was the point of Kuroko being put on me if he knew I was going to do this? And then that's when the steal comes in from Izuki. Oh, it's so good. But the ball's still alive and it still goes. Oh, I love it. I love Kise's not giving up. And what I love is that he questions what to do. He's like, do I take the ball and go shoot? He's like, I can't rely on my teammates. It has to be me. But then he thinks back to Kasamatsu and realizes that, wait, I have to rely on my teammates. I can't say that I can't do that. That's not going to work. And he learns from what he did in middle school. And I love that Almine's like, he should have hesitated. He shouldn't have instantly passed anyway. But he did. I love it. And him giving the ball to Kasamatsu. And Kasamatsu's like, if I don't make this, I'm not a real man. I love it. I love Kasamatsu's like, I'm a real man. And just, that was a great shot. Like there was part of me that wanted Kasamatsu to miss it. And the other part of me was like, no, I want him to make it because that was such a badass move. And I love that Kise passed it to him. And here's the thing. That is such a great comeback from the Toho game. Because in the Toho game, Kise went to pass it to Kasamatsu and Almine shot him down because of it. And it just like, it cost him the game. But here, it worked. It was the right call and they did score the points. So it was kind of like a little nice reversal of what happened in the past with them. I love that. And then, you think it's over with 4 seconds left? Nuh-uh, bitch. No. And I love that Akashi's like, it's not over. None of them are. And then they run and gun that to Kagami and Almine and everybody watching and Kise running back. I love that they're so quiet. But then what does Akashi say there? He says, this was Seiren's true aim, leaving for a few seconds for the counterattack. And then they drew Ryota under the net, giving Kagami the head start. Yes, of course, right? So starting with the run and gun, everything's been leading to this moment. He says, you've never been one to give up, Tetsuya. Yeah, no. Just framing that, right? That Kuroko doesn't give up, ever. Like, we've known that since season 1, but just building up towards that flashback. And then he goes to go after Kagami. And Kagami, I love that when Kagami said he was going to do the meteor jam, I'm like, you're not in the zone. That's another thing that surprised me. Kagami never gets in the zone the whole game. I'm assuming they're going to save it for Rakuzan. I'm assuming they're saving the zone for Rakuzan because, Lord help us. I have a feeling that that's going to be a thing. But, yeah, so they're saving it for Rakuzan. But he doesn't go into the zone, which is kind of crazy to me. Also, they beat Kise without him going in the zone. So I'm going to count that as a pretty good win for Seiren. But when he said he was going to do the meteor jam, I'm like, Kagami, that's not going to work. You're not in the zone. You kind of need to be like that, right? For it to work. And then that's when Kuroko's like, toss it back to me. I love that shot of Kagami realizing Kuroko's behind him. And he shoot. And so instead, he couldn't stop the dunk. So instead, he just threw it against the backboard so that it would. I've actually seen players do that, which is kind of crazy. I've seen a player before, they were in mid-shot, and realized what was going to happen, and they just did that, and it hit the backboard, came back, was rebounded, and got in the basket. I have actually seen that play happen like one time, and it worked one time, but it was really badass when it happened. So I'm really, really happy they got to do that. That's actually really cool. Yep. Grabbed it and then did it. I'm like, and then he made the shot at the buzzer and then managed to make it. So good. So good. 81-80. By the skin of their teeth, they beat Kaijo. I love Matobe's little smile. It's really cute. And Hyuga giving Kuroko all the head pats. Man, seeing Kaijo, the one defense guy with the glasses, like his head in his hands, that's such a sad shot. Such a sad shot. And then like Hayakawa and all them, like them just crying. What gets me is Kise. He has like the little cat face. He's like, hi guys. Like he's just like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm so serious. But he's like trying not to cry, putting on a face. He's a terrible actor, as Kasamatsu says. He's a great, great model, but a terrible actor. And I'm really glad he came up after them and was like, oh, you beat me. Like, let's play again. And Kagami is like, you beat me twice. I don't know what to say, but my head is clear. I gave everything I have and I have no regrets. Yeah, I'm glad that they beat Kise in his perfect copy form at the top of his game. Right? I mean, granted he had the foot injury, but I'm glad that Kaijo didn't lose because either his perfect copy ran out or that the foot injury flared up again. I'm glad that it wasn't like an excuse for them to not win. I'm glad that was the case. That was great. And then Kuroko's like, we'll just play again next year. And he's like, I love that Kise is like, I'll beat you next time. Let's play again next year. It's so good. And then they shake hands like a normal set of competitors would, you know? And then what does he say? Kuroko. He says, Kaijo's Kise-kun is the greatest player. Oh, it's so sweet. And then like the one number 10 is like crying into Teppei's hand. Like Teppei's like, this happens all the time. It's great. And then they're all shaking hands. Like, I love that Kaijo and Seiren are actually really good friends. Like, their teams play practice games a lot. They're close. I like that Hyuga and Kasamatsu have, like, a good moment as captain to captain. And I like that Kasamatsu, he holds his head high, and he's like, go become the champions. Win for us. I'm like, what a man among men, right? So good. And then Kisei's, like, his foot's hurting him, and he's trying to hold it in. He's like, now it hurts. And he's like, but it doesn't matter now. It's all over. And then he gets the towel thrown on him. I just love that Kasamatsu, as always, being the number one BF of the OTP, like just gets Kisei's arm around him and lifts him up and is like, let's walk out of here. I put this towel over your head so you can ugly cry. We got this. I'm like, Kasamatsu's getting it done. I freaking love him. I love him. He's like, you're obviously faking it. Oh, you may be a model, but you're not much of an actor. And then Kise just ugly cries. It's so good. It's so good. I love the team walks off with him. And then he says, I wanted to win. I wanted us to win together. That's the thing. He's like, I wanted our team to win. Bless him. Bless him. Love it. And so then Almine leaves. It's like, we got one game left. The finals. It's Rakuzan versus Seiren. Oh my god. And then we get the ED. We might as well talk about the end credits while we're here. Might as well talk about the end credits before the whole flashback preview. And that is in our end credits. Go ahead and talk about those. The very first one, the continuation of our game. We have Sakurai. Sakurai has been given all of these children and candies. Bless his heart. Poor him. And Rico and Momoy are still talking. It looks like Furry and them are handing out like little juice boxes or something to the kids. Like giving them something like snacks and things. I like the Tsuchidas like playing with the kids. Hyuga's showing the one little kid how to shoot. Kuroko's still helping that little girl out in the background. I like the continuity of that. That's really sweet. And then we have that Kagami went to pass the ball and it slipped out of his hands. Almine slipped it, and then we have it like flying off screen. And I like that Kise and Midorama are going after the ball as well, including number 2 and all the kids. Teppei's in the background with the kids on his shoulders. Murasakibara is not chasing after the ball. But, so Kuroko has the gray pants on with the blue shoes. And what do we see in the last shot? It is the members of Rakuzan, including Akashi. Akashi came out with them last time. We have Mabuchi, and we have the one guy, the cat boy, and the Nabuya, and him. They all showed up together, and the ball like bounces to them. So he can come to a playground. I'm going to try to be nicer to Akashi. I'm going to try my hardest. But yeah, I do like Akashi's style. I'll give him that. I like the black coat. His shoes almost match Kuroko's. They almost look like Teiko colored shoes. I wonder if he kept them from them. But yeah, I like it. So they did come. They did show up. Except for the silver-haired one. He can't come because we haven't seen him yet. So he can't be there. But I like that. That's really good. So then we have Kuroko is like, I was so focused on passing that I hadn't made a shot yet. That was my first buzzer beater. And then we don't get to see his happy face. He's like, I can die happy now. And everybody's like, we've never seen you so happy. I like that Kagami adds, please don't die. What a boyfriend. What a boyfriend. I love it. I love it. And then Hyuga's really happy, and Izuki says he's the hero of the day. And Hyuga's like, well, don't celebrate too hard. The war's not over yet, but he's beaming. He's happy. And Riko's like, okay, glad we all won, but let's be real. We got a game tomorrow, and it's the finals. And these guys don't play. So we just got out of a nail-biter game against a team that's been pretty kosher with us, and we've been friendly-dendly with them. That ain't gonna happen tomorrow. They're gonna come for blood. Akashi's gonna bite our necks like a vampire. We gotta be ready for this. So, and then Kagami loses. He lost the ring around his neck. So I was like, okay. So this establishes a couple things. Midorama's been there the whole time watching the game and probably saw the ring fall off, right? Probably. That's thing number 1. I really thought that it was going to be Kagami's chance to meet up with Hamuro and have the conversation with him, but alas, they're probably going to wait till the end of the season for that. But then Midorama and Kagami. Here's my thing. I kind of, like, you all know, I'm sure, if it wasn't obvious, I'm a huge Kagakuro shipper. I really am. But if I'm being totally honest, I mean, I'll ship Kagami and Almine like anybody else, because they have a lot in common. It's fun. But I honestly kind of have like a guilty pleasure ship of Kagami and Midorama a little bit. I do. Like Midorama and Takao are OTP, right? They're like soulmates. But, if you want just like a fun ship, Kagami and Midorama, there's just something about their chemistry that it shouldn't work, but it does. Like Kagami, I feel like Kagami respects Midorama and Midorama respects Kagami, but neither of them really want to like say it out loud. So they just kind of like skirt around the edges because he's like, oh, did you lose this? And he just happens to be there. And he's like, oh, you beat Kise. And he's like, oh, yeah. And then I like that Midorama like smiles about that. And he's like, I didn't think you'd reach Akashi. Like you've reached the final boss of like Zelda, He's like, you've done well. And he's like, why are you acting high and mighty? You're not my dad. And Midorama, he's like, why are you here anyway? And he says, no reason. I was in a pensive mood. Like he was feeling like he needed to, I'm going to get a screenshot of them like with their eyes closed like that. It's really cute. He's like, I was in a pensive mood after losing to Akashi. He says, well, you're playing for 3rd tomorrow. So they do actually play for 3rd and 4th. Okay, that's cool. So basically, Kaijo is going to have to play Midorama tomorrow. That's fun. I want to know who would beat Kaijo or Shitoku? Who would win? If Kise can use his perfect copy, that's going to be hard. I feel like Shitoku... That's a really hard thing because I feel like Shitoku has a more balanced roster than Kaijo does. But Kise's perfect copy makes them very difficult to face. But then Kise's foot's been hurting him, so that would be a really hard call. I'm wondering if we're going to get to see who places 3rd. Midorama doesn't seem very concerned. And he says, I'll watch your game when it's over. So they play first. And he's like, are you rooting for Akashi? And he's like, of course not. I don't intend to or need to root for him. Yeah, so that was never a question, right? He said, Akashi's strong. And he's like, I know. So that's the thing. So that's interesting that Midorama does not want to root for Akashi, nor does he intend to. So that's interesting. So which, you know, by and by means he's rooting for Seiren. So fun times. But I just like how serious they take each other, right? You can't be sure until you try. I love Kagami's mentality. Kagami's just like, yeah, I know he's strong, but what are we going to do about it? He's like, at this point, I've just got to face him. That's all there is, and just do my best. And I like Midorama looks at him almost like he's kind of like, all right. That's a good answer. Like, what else can you do, right? I like that Kagami is not underestimating Akashi. He's seen a taste of what Akashi can do, both off the court with his ability and on the court through Kise's copy. So he's like, I know to take him seriously. I'm not underestimating him, but what else am I supposed to do but take him head on? I like that. I like that mentality. And I feel like Midorama kind of respects it too. And then Kuroko's just kind of there. And again, I like Takao's like, hey, buddy, what you doing? This is kind of like summer, right? Your boyfriend, my boyfriend, talking to each other. What? Like, I love their banter. It's great. I love Takao is just like, oh, hey. And of course, Takao has to go wrangle Shin-chan. He's like, I'm not, riding this cart by myself. He's like, why is Kagami with him? And Kuroko's like, who knows? He's like, I don't feel like watching and laughing today. Yeah, Takao's like, we've had a rough day, so. And he wishes them good luck. And he's like, let's go. And that's when Midorama says, let me tell you something. There are two Akashi Seijuros. Yeah, the one without the colored eye and the one with the colored eye. So the question is, why are they different? What causes them to be different? And what's the deal? And he says, do your best. He's like, later, do your best. Takao says good luck. And he's like, just do your best. That's all you can do. Kagami's like, well, that was cryptic and not helpful. And at first I didn't think Kuroko was going to tell him, but instead he wants to tell everybody. And they all go to Kagami's house because Kagami is bougie and has like the nicest house. I do want to say this. We were talking in the Discord about this. Kagami is bougie, yes, because he has a very nice apartment, but he never acts like it, right? He doesn't act bougie. He acts like a perfectly normal guy. He just happens to have a family with money. And so Kuroko said he started playing basketball in 5th grade. He was such a little bean, like just a tiny bean. So cute, like a little 5th grader. Like in 5th grade, you're what? You're how old? You're like 10 or 11. So cute, like a 10 or 11-year-old kid. Absolutely adorable. I love it. The game seemed fun watching it on TV. And so he started playing. He didn't have any clubs, so kind of like Shoyo, he starts playing by himself. And then he met a friend, right? He was better than me and taught me how to play. But he moved away during my 6th grade year, and we made a promise that we'd join our middle school basketball teams and that we'd face each other. And then Kuroko said, no, he quit because of me. He'll likely never forgive me. So I'm like, well, what happened? So clearly, after that, they made that promise in April, he went to Teiko Middle School, and that's where he met Akashi and the others. So why did the other guy quit? Because of Kuroko. Why does Kuroko blame himself? Like my guess is that the guy played Teiko and the mini Generation of Miracles. I feel like if they're just starting 6th grade, because we saw in the one OVA, they weren't quite fully grown yet, and then by the time they were in 8th grade, they're like, Murray Sakibara was really tall, and they were all like growing into themselves, but in like 6th and 7th grade, they were still pretty small. So was he just on a team that got beat by Teiko so many times that was it? Why would he not forgive Kuroko? That's part of the game. I'm curious. I'm very curious. And like, the sky was unbelievably clear for a spring day. Like, there's no clouds, nothing. It's just a perfectly blue sky. But there was this like this beautiful cherry blossoms and this ominous music. I'm like, what the hell? So, dang it. So now I gotta go on my trip and wait like 2 weeks before watching this next set. So y'all will be caught up by the time I get back. But I'm really curious about this flashback. I'm assuming that's going to be the next set of episodes. I'm going to ask Patreon about it because I had someone. I'm going to ask Patreon about the episode sets and see what I'm going to do. But I'm at least going to watch 13, 14, and 15 next week and see what happens. But I don't know, y'all. I'm excited for the Generation of Miracles backstory. I love seeing flashbacks with them and getting more lore about their characters. I'm excited, but I'm also like, that ominous music, it makes me like a little nervous. So we'll see though. We'll see though, right? So I hope y'all have a wonderful week. I hope you enjoyed this reaction discussion. I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. Please, no spoilers. I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. But yeah, I will be back next week. Very excited to watch the next set of episodes of Kuroko's Basketball. Bye.